Good morning, everybody. This is Stephen Ramsden with the Charlie Bates Solar Astronomy Project and the Sunlit Earth nonprofits. Welcome to This Week in Sunlit Earth, nature, birding, and nature photography. We've got a great show lined up for today, and we are going to have one of my good friends, Rebecca Sealand, and a talented artist on with us talking about what she does and showing us some of her cool stuff. And we are going to go through what's going on in birding this week. So thanks for tuning in. We are broadcasting live on Facebook, hopefully. Let me make sure of that. And wait a minute, are we broadcasting live on Facebook? Yeah, these are when all the technical glitches occur, but I'm pretty sure we are. Okay. Or am I broadcasting live on my page? Let me check that just a minute because, you know, that's the way things are. Rebecca, how are you and Dwayne doing over there?
We are good. We haven't gone outside the past couple of days, but we're doing good over here, hanging in there, missing our group hikes.
Okay. Yeah,
We're
knock me off
excited to
again.
get all that rain from the hurricane and saw the pond had filled up. That's a good thing.
Absolutely. Can you guys tell me about fall is here and what's going on in your neck of the woods real quick, bird-wise, while I attempt to get our Facebook stream going again?
Well, we have noticed our little hummingbirds at our house. The males seem to have moved on, and there have been a couple females, and of course they're always fighting with each other over the feeders, even though there's 3 of them spread throughout. But the past couple of days, we've noticed that they just sit there for several minutes with no chasing, just slurping up some of that good juice. So,
Yeah, they're all trying to, you know, like survive right now. They kind of gave up the fighting part.
I know, I'm glad we didn't get too much bad weather here, or not at our house anyway. So hopefully all the little hummies and all the other little birds are doing okay. I always feel like I was watching them yesterday. One of the little lady hummingbirds was out there sitting at the feeder,
All right, just looking
raining
around.
on her. But I feel like, oh, I should go put something over her head. But I know they do this all the time and they're okay.
Well, we are currently in the process of retrying to start our Facebook Live meeting. And I'm not sure what's up with that, but I will tell you this. There we go. Okay, so we are live now. Good. So anyway, hopefully that's gonna continue. Now we've got a bunch of people wanting to get in. There's Alexandra Hart from the UK, Harold, Becky Cover, Lynn Farmer. Absolutely great to see everybody here. I appreciate you. Hey, Alexandra, she was on last week's show. And if you have something to say, feel free to come on in. Otherwise, just mute your mic and listen up, and we will have a good time. First thing we're going to do is talk about what's going on in birding. Okay, so this week, fall is here, my friends. Clearly, let me get over to the Sunlit Earth group real quick. Make sure we're still broadcasting. All right. Fall is here. This morning, the temperatures at my house in Midtown Atlanta were in the high 50s. Of course, yesterday we had 5.5 inches of rain here from Hurricane Sally passing through. And that has totally changed the landscape for birding and nature photography in our area. Yesterday morning, was it yesterday morning? No, 2 mornings ago, I was at the nature preserve filling up the hummingbird feeders and took a video of a totally dry pond, a dry nature preserve. And then yesterday it was completely flooded. There was 6 to 8 inches of water on all the trails. The pond is 4 feet deep in places, and all this occurred from the trillions and trillions of gallons of the Gulf of Mexico that were picked up by Hurricane Sally and then distributed around the Southeast. It's really an amazing transformation, and seeing it happen in such a short order, in such a quick time, it really gets me close to what I love, and that is sunlight and our atmosphere and space and how things work. You know, we live in this really, really fragile atmosphere clinging to this hunk of rock, going around this giant ball of hydrogen. that's constantly fusing into helium and producing this energy. And if our atmosphere, if one thing were off, if something goes 5% this way, 5% that way, we'd all be dead. There wouldn't be any nature. This atmosphere is so thin, it's 50,000 feet basically on a 25,000 mile circumference globe. Yeah, it's not flat. It's a globe, in case you didn't know. And the fragility of the system is just amazing to me. So this water that's redistributed from the sea up into the clouds is vapor, and then the temperature changes a few degrees and it recondenses and falls back on us, is really what life's all about. And it's a pleasure to see. I call it liquid sunshine. And, I ponder these things all the time, and that's why everyone thinks I'm crazy. But watching the pond transform, and immediately several mallards, wood ducks, herons, all came into the pond immediately as soon as it was up, because it's got fresh grass, fresh weeds to eat. So the place was full of life. The yellow jackets were all kind of flooded out of their nests, and the wasps, and they were running around looking for something to eat because they'd all been displaced. And then we saw, I think Rebecca saw it too, we saw this wonderful raft of ants yesterday in the pond. And I think I may even have a photo of that. But these ants, have been displaced from their nest. And of course, they're losing their minds over it. I don't have that right now, but we'll get to it in a minute. But, 100,000, 200,000 ants were floating around, and they decided, we want to survive. We want our eggs to survive. So let's link our little legs together and make a raft for everyone else so they can survive. So there's a layer of ants, and then there's about 50 layers on top of that, and they're just floating out in the middle of the pond with just one side attached to a stem. And I know everybody's heard about it, and you read about it in books, but seeing that live was really unbelievable. And I published a slow motion video of them moving around on the Sunlit Earth group page that you can take a look at if you want. And of course, I'm leaning over this ant raft with my iPhone, wearing waders, and I knew I was going to fall into it. I just knew, because last year I fell and dropped my phone in the water when it flooded. And as I was leaning over, I just felt certain, any second now I'm going to fall into this pile of ants, and it's going to be really ugly. And it was on Facebook Live, but somehow that didn't happen. The preserve is in full swing. And, funny, it was draining really fast yesterday too, because the pond went down about 8 inches while I was there over a 2-hour period. It's still full, still flooded. But, once it hits that certain point, man, it just goes, and it goes into the South Peachtree Creek and keeps on going south. So if you haven't been to Clyde Shepherd in a while, it's a good time to go out there now, because migration is in full swing. When you see Kathy Miller out at Clyde Shepherd Nature Preserve, then it's time to go birding. And she's out there all the time now. I think she may have set up a tent to stay there. The warblers are coming through any day. The brown creepers will be coming in. The cedar waxwings will be coming in. It's a great place to be. In fact, I think Rebecca and her husband Dwayne and I met at Clyde Shepherd Nature Preserve.
We did meet at Clyde Shepherd, and it was when the bittern was there.
Yeah, my favorite bird, the American bittern. And there was plenty of nerds out there then with their lenses. And Rebecca and Dwayne and I just recognized our mutual nerdiness, and we've been friends ever since. They are big supporters of Sunlit Earth, and we appreciate them. So Lake Lanier, just briefly, I wanted to show you a photograph of a bird that was at Lake Lanier, a magnificent frigate bird. So, I was going to show you a photograph of it. There it is. Let me share this screen real quick, and we'll get to Rebecca's wonderful, awesome presentation in just a minute. Check this out, man. This is a magnificent frigate bird, which usually is only seen in the wide ocean in the Gulf of Mexico and somewhere around the South American coasts. Keegan Corcoran, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, spotted this bird while out on a boat. And, this bird's got about a 6-foot wingspan. It's a fish diving bird. It's got that swallowtail tail on it. I don't remember anyone ever seeing a magnificent frigate bird in the middle of North Georgia. It's possible, but this was an awesome bird. And he took several photos of it from his boat. Look at that bird, man. That's awesome. Isn't that a beautiful, beautiful bird? Rebecca, have you ever seen a magnificent frigate bird at Lake Lanier?
No, I don't know if I've I don't know if I've ever seen one. May have seen one somewhere else and
Yeah, that's a
not
pretty
know what
amazing
it
shot.
was, but
Of course,
look at that tail.
yeah, it's fantastic, you know. And these birds sleep on the wing over the ocean, and they call them frigate birds because they were only seen from boats out in the middle of the ocean. You know, this is not something you see hanging out at Clyde Shepherd. Once in a lifetime bird. So of course I went out there the next day, spent 9 hours in the sweat looking for this bird. I saw nothing, but I did have fun trying to find it. They also spotted a brown booby at no puns there, folks. Let's be mature. They spotted a brown booby at Lake Lanier, which is another fish diving bird, and it's a migrator from the Arctic. Both of those, the brown booby's still there. Of course, I did not see either one, but I did see three potheads playing around on a kayak, making a bunch of noise and ruining my experience. But it was still fun to sit out there and look for these birds. And Becky, hey, I see you over there. Give us a wave. Hey, Miss Becky. So that's what's going on at Lake Lanier. Let me stop sharing. Clyde Shepherd Pond's full of ducks. We already talked about that. Rebecca mentioned earlier that our hummingbird feeders, probably all of us are sharing this experience. The hummingbirds are fat and they're frantic because it's about time for them to head south. I thought for sure they were going to leave before Hurricane Sally came through here, but all my birds at Clyde Shepherd and all my birds here at the patio are still coming by. They are noticeably fatter. They used to be pinky size. Now they're thumb size. And they also are not fighting over the feeder nearly as much as they were. I think they're all just in the guzzle up mode. You know, they've got this 500+ mile flight to go over the Gulf of Mexico to get down to my friends in the Dominican Republic. Hey, Rafael. And that's about a 30-hour flight without landing. And these birds weigh about 3 grams. So you talk about a miracle of nature. That's awesome. The Fernbank Science Center, yes, that's right, Fernbank Science Center, where you last went to in elementary school, has a huge amount of common nighthawks flying around by the planetarium. There's a forest over there, and Kathy Miller cued me in on this last year. But right at sunset, you will see a dozen or maybe 2 or 3 dozen common nighthawks just all over the place, eating bugs and mosquitoes from the lamps that stay on the street lights at Fernbank Science Center.
So Stephen, how can you see those? Can you just drive over there somewhere?
That's a great question.
Without getting in, without going into Fernbank?
Yes, the planetarium is open on Thursday and Friday night, I believe, but they may actually be closed now still because of COVID. So check the hours, and I would go when they're closed. But even if you go when they're open, there's an ample parking space there. But when I went the last time, I just pulled up to the front drive, parked my car, and got my camera out of the back and set it up right there. So, awesome. Yeah, it's very, very easy to get to. And Fernbank Science Center is off Ponce de Leon Avenue between Atlanta and Decatur. And the birds come out of the trees that are surrounding the property. And, you know, you can't miss them. I mean, they look like big fat bats flying around, and they probably have a mouthful of gnats. Speaking of big fat bats flying around, last year I was on a local news station because I was out at the Kroger across the street from my house filming chimney swifts. And I can't tell you how many people came by and said, look at those bats, look at those bats. Well, they're not bats, they're chimney swifts. Or as my father-in-law, who's in his late 70s, calls them, chimney sweeps for some reason. He knows all the birds' names for southern birds, but he knows his version of their names, like the yellow hammer. Anything with blue on it is a bluebird. Anything with red on it is a redbird. Orange juice bluebird is a new one he told me the other day. That's just what they call bluebirds. And chimney with an L, chimney sweeps. That's what they call the chimney swift. And the nighthawk is a sparrowhawk. Of course, we've all probably heard that before.
I like that orange juice bluebird.
Orange juice bluebird, because you know the
yeah, they're all orange in the front.
Yeah, that's what they call them, orange juice bluebird. I've heard that before down in South Georgia. So common nighthawks at Fernbank, dozens of them, a sight not to miss. Pull up 20 minutes or really 15 minutes before the scheduled sunset time. And then within about 30 minutes, you'll see them all swarming around. Same thing with the chimney sweeps at the Ford Factory Square Apartments, which I can see from my patio. There's at least 5,000, if not more. I mean, I'm grossly underestimating. But last year we were on Channel 11 showing the chimney sweeps, the chimney swifts, and they formed this tornado. You know, we've all seen it. And right at about the sunset time scheduled, they have this big, massive circle of birds that's blocking out most of the sky. And then as the few minutes go on, it gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and then they just all dump down into the chimney. And I've often wondered what the pecking order is, who gets the best spot. I would imagine the best spot is the last one to go in because he's on the top, but I don't know. So I've watched him several nights now by just pulling over into the Kroger parking lot and hopping out of my car and watching them. And it happens right at sunset and lasts from about 8 to 8:45. It's a breathtaking experience. Last year we had a Autobahn get together at the bar on top of and I don't drink, okay, at the bar on top of the building next door. We had a big deal about it. We had about 150 people there. Everybody was getting juiced up good. And none of the chimney swifts showed up. They had left the day before. So we might have seen 2 bats or something, and everybody goes, chimney swifts. But this year we're going to do a live broadcast on the 23rd, which I think is Tuesday night. But we're going to do a live broadcast on the Georgia Audubon page. And I'll be filming the chimney swifts at my location, and another Audubon person will be over there on the other side of my house filming the other chimney swift colony, which is about a block the other way. So we live right in between 2 massive colonies of chimney swifts. In fact, if I look outside right now, all I see is chimney swifts going back and forth all day long, eating bugs. It's awesome. Speaking of my patio, I heard several barred owls this morning. And listen, I live in the middle of Midtown. Some of you are familiar with the bar behind my house and the garbage problems we have and the various disturbances we have here all night long. But for some reason, there was at least 2 barred owls out in our little complex here. I'm not sure what tree they were in, but they were caterwauling and raising all kind of cane this morning, which tells me one thing. Make sure my camera works in the Clyde Shepherd owl box. I've got a webcam up there for displaying their breeding this year. It's totally hidden away. They never know it's in there. And I can't wait because I think they're flirting now, trying to find their mates. Because if I understand correctly, the barred owls are monogamous. I'm hoping they can get together this year and get back in the Clyde Shepherd owl box. And then we can do some live inside the box videos. So the barred owls are here. You guys got barred owls hollering at your place? Sealands?
We had some that are like right behind our house. There's a bunch of trees of just a tiny little wooded area. And I love hearing those barred owls.
Yeah, me too. I'd like to hear some great
Sometimes I'll
horns.
hear them and then they'll stop and I'll pull up my Sibley app on my phone and play it so I can hear it again.
Yeah, me too.
Love that barred owl.
Becky, do you have any barred owls at your place?
Don't see them or hear 'em much here, but over at the horse park, there's a couple of
A
pairs
ton of them.
here.
You know, I'd love to hear some great horns, because I've already seen the barred owl and I want more now because that's how I am. But I understand when the great horned owls come in, they run off all the barred owls. And last year we did not have breeders in the box at Clyde Shepherd because the female never showed up. So she must have been killed or died of natural causes or something. But the male was in the tree next to the box for weeks. Almost the whole time they would have normally been there with eggs. The male was up in the tree by himself. So it was kind of sad, but we'll see what happens this year. So the owls are going. Before we move on, I wanted to suggest to everyone, and I know everybody that I know on this call already does this, but listen, ebird.org is the way we record our birds when we're out birding. And if you have a smartphone, you can just start the app on your phone. And when you see the bird, you just type in the first couple letters of the name and how many you saw. And, this is a really good asset. I was kind of surprised to learn how many of my friends don't use eBird. When you go to ebird.org after you've had an account, you're not just putting in, your bird list, you're getting everyone else's birds list too. So when something like migration comes along, I can get on that website and I can just type in Clyde Shepherd and it'll tell me every bird that's been seen there in the last 2 or 3 days and who saw it, how many, etc. So it really gives you a great advantage when you're looking for a certain bird, or if you want to see, is it worth driving an hour and a half over here to Becky's house to check out the birds? What are they seen over there? Or if you're going down to the coast, where are the sightings? Where's the great horned nest, or where's the roseate spoonbills? All that information is free on eBird. It's a free account. and they also use this information for real science and research. So I really encourage those of you that don't use it now to get an eBird.org account and start typing in what you see. You don't even have to do it while you're out there. If you like writing them down on paper or whatever, that's fine. But just try to put it in, because it helps everybody in the community, and it's a great asset for you. So, was there a question there? Did you say something? Okay. Do you use eBird, Rebecca? Can I publicly shame you for not using eBird?
I use it sometimes, and
Okay.
probably not as often as I should. And half the time, if Dwayne and I are just out by ourselves, a lot of times we are not sure what the birds are, so sometimes I
Gotcha.
don't feel confident enough to post it. But
Gotcha. And I've heard that before too.
I
You
feel
know, when
like I don't use it as much because I feel like too amateurish.
I've heard that before, and I that's one of the reasons why I started the Sunlit Earth Facebook group, to be honest with you, because, not naming any names, but some of the other groups are so arrogant sometimes about, birds explaining to you. Like if you put up the wrong species, you get, these harsh comments from people just telling you you're wrong. I think seeing this hobby through the eyes of someone who's just starting it is the greatest thing there is. I love learning from Kathy Miller and Jeff Sewell and these other, Dan Vickers and these guys that are pros, but I've learned just as much, if not more, from watching Josiah or some of the first time birders go out. They see things that we don't see. So, Georgia Wildlife and Sunlit Earth are really welcoming groups that don't, jump on you if you're wrong about something. So come on over and join our Facebook group page at Sunlit Earth. And I don't care what your photos look like. It's not about how good of a photographer you are. It's about sharing the wonder of nature and sunlight. And yes, public shaming to you, Rebecca, for not using eBird. Becky, I know you use eBird. Alexandra Hart in the UK, you can also use eBird if you want to. It's just a great resource for knowing what's going on in birding around you. And Rebecca, I wanted to point out a couple things about Mr. and Mrs. Sealand. They are a married couple and they bird together, and it's really an inspiration to me to see, it's not very common that you see couples out together birding. A lot of times, the spouse is trying to get the hell away from the other spouse, so they go birding. But this is a really cool thing, and I wish there was more of it. My wife is busy. She still works. She's an attorney, and she loves nature, but she doesn't have time to go birding. At least she thinks she doesn't have time to go birding. And I end up usually going by myself. But it's really nice to see a couple out there doing it together, and they share everything, and it's fun to go birding with them because you can tell when they're picking at each other, and it's kind of funny to watch. But they've really grown a lot in the last 2 or 3 years with their association with us, and also with their innate skill as photographers. They participated in plenty of the Sunlit Earth hikes that we have. They are always there to help. I remember Rebecca finding her first tree frog. I thought that was awesome.
That was awesome.
Yeah, and
I had hunted for them, but didn't know where to look, and it's just so awesome to finally see something in person. It was really exciting.
And that's what I'm talking about. Just like in astronomy, when someone first sees Saturn through one of my telescopes or something, I really feed off that energy and really get motivated. And I remember when you picked up that snake on one of our hikes, and your eyes, you look like a excited 8-year-old or something. It was just awesome to watch, and people fed off that. I know I fed off of it. So that's what we try to do here, man. We try to bring new people in, get them to think about something other than all the garbage that's going on in the world right now. And, there's so much beauty around us everywhere. If you just look, it doesn't matter where you are. There's sunlight showing you beauty of all kinds. So thanks to all that are tuned in right now. We've got a bunch of people on. And again, if you'd like to chime in and make a comment anytime through the presentation, I know Rebecca would love to hear from you, and so would I. Just unmute yourself and, politely break in if you want to. We're also going out live on Facebook, and hey, Facebook users, sorry about all the politics. Just block them. So Rebecca has trained for many months in a course about touching up, painting, processing. I don't know what you'd call it, but she's going to get in depth with how she makes these beautiful photos come to life with additional layering and brushes in Photoshop. And she's going to tell us all about that in a few minutes. But first, I think she wants to show us some of her awesome photographs just of nature and maybe tell us a little bit about what's going on. Rebecca, are you ready to go through that with us?
I am.
I'm so glad.
First I wanted to tell you, we're talking about like coming up with like finding surprises and the first time you see something. Dwayne and I went to the botanical gardens Monday. And if you remember there, Monday morning, they open Mondays at 8 instead of 9, which is really great because by 9, it's already stinking hot here in Atlanta.
Right, for members, right? You get it early if you're a member.
Members only.
Yeah.
And it's not so crowded. We have really been trying to avoid crowds. So we can usually get there, spend a couple hours and leave before the crowds come. So anyway, we were there and I saw a woman that works there and she's seen us there several times and she's like, hey, there's a really cool spider. I haven't seen it yet today, but go up around this path and you'll see it. It's big. So I scurried up around the corner on that path and I saw this huge spider web, but it wasn't like a, it was 3-dimensional instead of just flat to catch bugs. It was like a cylinder, like a funnel. And it was kind of hard to see because she was a little further away. And first I'm like, oh, there she is in the middle. And then I'm like, no, I think that's some debris hanging. And Dwayne came around the corner and he's like, no, that's the spider. She's hanging upside down with all 8 legs hanging forward. So, once I looked through my camera and it was about like 300 millimeters, I'm like, oh, she is. I'm like, God, I think she's dead. And I looked further and I said, look, I think there's a male hanging. They were just hanging from the silk thread. And I thought, wow. I think the male is hanging above her. But I know in nature, sometimes after spiders mate, the female might kill the male. She's done with them.
And sometimes in humans too, just to let you know.
God. And, praying mantises, the female just bites the head right off the male.
Oh, man.
Done with you.
Like
But so I thought maybe something like that happened, but I'm like, oh my God, well, the female, she shouldn't die. She's got to get those eggs out.
Right.
So until we took a bunch of photos and I didn't even know what was going on until we got home and reviewed the photos. And I'm going to show you this photo. And I knew she wasn't dead because her legs would twitch. So I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
And here we go.
Good.
Okay, so here is the spider, and you can see she is a beauty, isn't she? But all her legs are hanging straight down.
Stephen, I'm not seeing. There we go. Now I see.
There, yeah, there's a slight delay. Is this Harold?
It was a delay. That was Dwayne.
Oh, that's Dwayne. Yeah, there's a 20-second delay on the Facebook feed.
Oh, yeah, okay. So he was looking he put it up to see what it looked like on my iPhone.
There's Becky's dog. Hey, Becky's dog. Anyway, yeah, I've never seen a spider with his legs hanging like this. I wonder what that's all about.
So as soon as we saw this, I Googled it, of course, because I'm like, look at this up here. She molted. So that is her exoskeleton.
I've never heard of that before.
Cool.
I had just recently saw somebody posted a jumping spider that molted, and it was like he took a helmet off his head and just set it down.
And that's an orb weaver, right?
This is a golden silk orb weaver.
I didn't even know they shed their skin.
They do. I looked up like spiders that molt in Georgia. So what they have to do is and I learned this though, they pump a lot of what is spider blood, which is really hemolymph, into their cephalothorax, which is the head area right there. And it makes it bigger, and all of a sudden that it's like a lid that pops off and she busts out of there. So you can see here, that's the top of her head, the shell of her head. It just like popped open like a.
And so she climbs out of that?
Yeah, she climbs out, and like you can see, that was the top of her head. It had all the little hairs on it and everything. And then
Wow.
she pulled out of here the abdomen and her legs. And
That is crazy.
like her old leg shell even has those bottle brush hairs, and the new ones do.
So was it some kind of recovery time after that or something?
Yeah. So she was just, oops, I wanted to go to here. Oh, there was another one. I had two of them, but yeah, so she was there still growing a little bit and getting her shell to harden and just recuperating and growing. And I just
I don't
thought
think
it was
I've ever seen
fascinating.
that
So
anywhere, even on a documentary or anything. I don't think I've ever even heard of that. You ever seen that in nature, Becky?
I've seen that spider before, actually down at, I think it's Lake Allison at the Piedmont Wildlife.
I mean, like shedding its skin though.
No, I've seen a little face like that though, and I didn't realize what I was seeing, I guess.
What's
like
that called
you saw
again?
the shells,
Yeah.
like a discarded shell.
No, I think you're talking about the face that pops up. What was the name of that thorax again? The
Golden silk. Oh, the cephalothorax.
cephalothorax. So you got your Google doctorate on spiders over the weekend then.
I did.
Awesome.
I'll forget by next week. You know.
Okay, keep telling us.
So anyway, I thought this was a beautiful spider. She looks like a squid here hanging
Yeah,
down.
it really is. It really is.
And I just think she has a beautiful body. Yeah.
Is that what you thought was the male? The shell?
I thought the shell was the male when I was looking because it's smaller and he's hanging above.
Right.
But yeah, she builds that her nest all around her so that she'll be protected when she's vulnerable.
Yeah, that is crazy, man.
That's a great shot there.
It really is.
Oh, thanks. I thought I really wish we didn't walk up. We went the week before, but we didn't go up that little path because I wish I would have had a shot of her before all this happened. And I don't know. I'd like to go back now and see what's going on. Is she still in the same place or moved on? So I just thought it was fascinating.
And was this with your 100-400 lens like you normally use, or was this with the
Yes.
macro? Okay.
Yeah. And these were shot at about 300. So anyway, so one of the other things I've been practicing at the Atlanta Botanical Gardens and Clyde Shepherd and a couple other places is shooting hummingbirds. And so here's my next image. And I know Stephen and some of the other Sunlit Earth photographers just get great hummingbird shots that have been really inspirational to Dwayne and I to
Thank
watch.
you. The hummingbird does all the work.
It's beautiful.
They are, but those little buggers are fast, zipping around. And it really took me a while to be able to get the hang of it, to get one. This is one of my favorite photos because first of all, it's in focus.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
that's like my first, I got a hummingbird photo in focus. Because I'm not quite at the level of you guys with these hummingbird photos, but I love this shot because I shot this at like 1/1250th. So she's nice and sharp, or I think that's probably a juvenile male. I see some little speckles.
Yeah, I don't know, because I see those little dots on the throat of my females. I don't know which one it is. And I don't really care. I just love the beauty of this photograph and how the wings show movement, but the body is crisp and focused. It's really cool.
I do. I like that there's still a little bit of movement in the wings. If I'd gone much faster in shutter speed, there wouldn't have been. And probably could have been a little slower, but like I said, I'm just trying to get one in focus.
I love how they have their little claws hanging down, like
I love looking at their feet
when they're flying around.
I just really love their feet. And I learned something new a couple months ago on a virtual Audubon hike that hummingbirds can't walk. They can only hop because their feet are just made. Anyway, I thought that was fascinating.
Right.
So I always think about that when I see their little feet hanging down.
And before you go on, speaking of sunlight, all these colors on this bird are produced by, obviously, and the flower and everything else in this photo, by sunlight refracting or reflecting off of it. And as this bird changes its position relative to the sun and the angle of incidence of light changes on it, it totally changes color. So the throat on the male will be black if the light hits it a certain way. And then as soon as the light hits it a different way, it's bright neon red. And I think that's really cool. And that's one of the things, that I think about while I'm out nerding out on nature. is how this angle of incidence is so prominent in all these animals. And I had something else really interesting to say, but I just kind of wandered off in thought there about light for a minute and just forgot.
Well, Stephen, you've posted videos before of a hummingbird. I don't know if we're seeing it still or hovering, and it goes from black to red, and that's really amazing.
Yeah, and that's what really fascinates me about nature.
Yeah, and sunlight.
And sunlight.
Sunlight.
Hence the name Sunlit Earth.
Absolutely. So anyway, I liked this photo a lot because I love the soft pink coral color of these flowers.
Mm-hmm.
This flower is called, its official name is Hesperole Pink Parade, and it's in the agave or yucca family. And it's really, this was like 20 feet tall, and they come up and they hang over. And I mean, I just lucked out, but I couldn't have had a background that I liked it any more than this. If I were going to paint a background for this, I would have picked it because it's got all the.
Now, is that the photo, or did you insert that over another background?
No, this is the photo. So
I know a lot of people like to.
Out with this
yeah, they'd like to take the picture of the osprey or something and then put it over this like beautiful, majestic, cloudy background, and it's obviously not real. But
right.
some people can get away with it, and it looks all right. I really like photos the way they're, the way they are, and of course I'll adjust them a little bit in Photoshop too. But until they come up with a focus adjuster in Photoshop, then it's not going to do a whole lot for most of my photos. Because you're right, getting it in focus is probably the hardest thing for me, at least, because I can't even see, and I've got my viewfinder, my camera adjusted so much that when someone else looks through it, they're like, what the hell? I can't see anything. You know how you can adjust the diopter to match your eyesight?
That's a huge issue for me. I wear my prescription sunglasses, and even before the pandemic, they would fog up, and now you add a mask into it, everything's fogged. Then I try to look without my glasses, I can't see anything, and then my arms
I'm with
shake.
you, man.
So, like I said, I'm happy when I get something in focus.
Amen. What else you got for us?
So, this is a redbud tree, and one of the things I really like about this image is when you look at a redbud tree, a redbud tree puts on, not for very long, but this whole beautiful pink display when you look at it from a distance, and they're quite lovely. But when you get up close to it, it has these tiny little flowers that I think are really beautiful. They look like little sweet peas, or someone told me they look like little pink slippers.
They do.
And they grow right on the limbs. I don't think there are any leaves while the flowers are there. I think those come later. So I really like this image because the lighting is pretty nice. It wasn't too harsh. So we all like sunlight, but when you're doing photographs, you don't want it too harsh, especially on flowers. But I just like the idea that you can see something from a distance and it can be really beautiful. But when you go up and get up close and personal, it looks
world of
totally
macro
different.
comes
There's a
up.
whole another little world there.
Yeah, the macro world comes up, and sometimes the micro world. We had this tree right next to the feeders at Clyde Shepherd. That the Sunlit Earth maintains the feeders and all that stuff. And there's one of these trees just a few feet away from it, and I always love to see it when the leaves fall and the buds come out.
Oh, nice.
That one on the right there in the background kind of looks like a weird looking chili pepper.
It does look like a like a little pink chili pepper. That's kind of funny. So another thing about like moving around, I was told years ago that the best piece of equipment that you have in your bag, which isn't really in your bag, is your feet. Is you got, when you see something and take a picture, you still have to really move around and see this. So a friend of mine called me a 3 weeks ago and said, oh my God, there's these beautiful mushrooms right down the street from me. You've got to come look at them and bring your camera. Well, I mean, we had so much rain and mushrooms everywhere, but she was really excited about these. So I went, and sure enough, they're beautiful. And this is Amanita jacksoni, which of course I had to look up orange mushroom and figure out what it was. But I love this because it's got this kind of like, this is an Easter egg looking thing popping out of this fairy ring. And mushrooms, of course, day by day change dramatically. So there were several here in varying degrees of growth. And so I had to get down low to shoot this straight on at the same angle. And I like that a lot. But I also really like to look at details and things. And I love the abstractness of the top of those mushrooms. And it goes from this light orange to dark orange to lighter again. And I love all the texture in this. And another one was similar, but it had split open more. And my favorite one of these was this shot, which shows the gills of the mushroom, which I did learn on some movie we watched that if your husband is bad, you cook these gills up and it won't kill him. It'll just make him act better. So I always like to point this out in my household because sometimes my husband is bad.
And was this also with your telephoto lens, or was this with your
No,
macro?
this was with my 100 macro.
And you shoot with a Canon?
I shoot with a Canon 80D.
Uh-huh.
And so my two main lenses are the Canon 100 macro and then 100 to 400.
Right. And do you use like a certain focal length when you get in super close on this stuff? Do you like go into f7.1 or something, or?
Not necessarily. It depends on how much light I have.
So you just go with whatever the picture requires.
This one was at 6.3 at 500.
And
So,
do you remember how far back you were when you took that? Were you like within a foot of it?
probably within a foot or so. I was pretty close to this. And I didn't have any extension tubes or anything with me. So it was just my macro lens. So I wanted to get enough of it in to show. I probably could have got closer, but I wanted the whole curve of it. And I really love this.
Well, you know, a lot of people don't know also that 100 macro lens is one of the best astrophotography lenses out there that you can use. Pointing it at the sky. In fact, if you look at the live view and point it up at the sky at night, it actually amplifies the starlight, and you can see millions of stars even from the city.
Oh,
with
wow.
that 100 millimeter macro on its widest open aperture, f2.8, I believe it is. And the depth of field is irrelevant because everything is, 3,000 light years away. But that's one of the best astrophotography lenses you can get. So if you want to do Milky Way photos, the 100 macro is a great lens to do that.
Oh, awesome. So we're already set for that.
Yeah. And when you back up, if you're using the macro, when you back up from the subject, you get a smaller subject, but your depth of field increases drastically. If you double your distance, your depth of field also doubles. So it's a whole new world of stuff, learning to use a macro lens. Becky, do you shoot with a macro sometimes?
I do have a macro lens, and I need to learn more about it. That's just a great shot there, Rebecca. I love that.
Oh, thanks.
I do too.
And the depth of field is something that I've really been working on because
I struggle with that.
I mean, half the time I get home and I'm like, oh, I got nothing because I got a paper thin depth of field. I mean, just paper thin. So I've been trying to get more depth of field.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do that. And we'll probably have a show on that at some point in the future. But depth of field is a tough thing to master, and it changes. It's very dynamic. If you move the macro lens back 1 inch, your depth of field changes fairly drastically. And a lot of people will take pictures of that mushroom from the front all the way to the back and then use stacking in Photoshop, which is a whole nother topic that we are well familiar with in astronomy photography. But yeah, I think it's just a tool on the camera that most people don't understand and don't use much. And it's something to be further explored because you can really get some fantastic shots with varying depths of field.
And I've played around with doing some photo stacking. And when I'm shooting, I'll think about that sometimes. I didn't do it on this one. But usually I'm handheld. So
yeah, these cameras,
these
cameras that we have, I don't think anybody I know knows more than about 10% of the capabilities of them. I mean, it's like astronomy photography. I mean, these cameras are so complex and so well engineered. Most people get up to about 5 or 10% of what it'll do, and that's good enough for them, and they just move on. So I endeavor to know everything Anyway, sorry to interrupt. What do you got
That's
for
okay.
us?
So
Oh my God.
this pink zinnia, I saw this, and I did shoot this from some different angles, but really, I mean, the shot was from above on this. This flower was probably at its peak that day when I found it, and it was just petal perfection. You know, everything was perfect about it. It didn't have brown spots, and I really just loved it. And my lighting was nice. This was shot about 9 a.m. So the sun wasn't getting too harsh yet. And when I was learning photography many years ago, one of the people we studied, I think it was Henri Cartier-Bresson, that was always saying, oh, you must compose the image in your camera and print out everything that's on the negative and not crop in. And I never really agreed with that, because it's like, well, what if that's not the shape I want? Or, you know, now, like with Instagram, squares become real popular, and I'll crop what I want to crop.
Right.
And but this
Right.
was really just
I'm a big fan of cropping.
absolutely. And this was pretty much as it was, except for obviously not square.
Right.
And actually on this, I had gotten a little too close to the bottom edge, so I had to add a little bit extra down there to make it.
Say it
not
ain't so.
too close.
You fudged on your photo? Is that what I'm hearing?
I did, and one of the amazing things in Photoshop
The clone tool.
that they didn't used to have now is that content aware crop.
Oh, yeah.
And when I first saw that, because I had an old version of Photoshop, and I saw someone do some demo about 1.5 years ago, and she showed that, and I'm like, wow, that's magic. Because I could certainly go in and rubber stamp that and add a little more, but
Yeah.
that little, I added really just a smidgen, like 1/4 of an inch, and it was just like
Yeah, that's
that.
used a lot of the astronomy. Also, it's common to have a piece of dust on your sensor, and it really looks terrible in a star field photograph. So people will use the content aware tool routinely. So was this image taken in one shot? Because the depth of field is perfect.
Yes, this was one shot. I did not stack this.
That is an awesome
So,
image.
and I really wanted it to show the lusciousness of the petals and the roundness, you know, how it really rounds over.
Yeah,
So,
I always wonder why it's advantageous for this plant, you know, to be these certain colors, and why do the molecular boundaries choose these wavelengths to reflect, and why, you know, why is it? And it's just an amazing topic to me.
right. And these pink petals, you can see the ones in the middle that are curled or yellow on the back. And
Yeah,
that's
that's
really
crazy,
cool.
man. Evolution.
So I thought, like when I was taking this and I first saw it, well, this would be a gorgeous flower to paint with my painting process, but I didn't do it with this one because really, I don't think it would have improved it. So as Stephen said, I started taking these classes last summer on painting flowers in Photoshop, and I always wanted to be an artist when I was a kid, and I really just didn't have any talent for painting or drawing.
Just so you know, we had a comment from Lynn, who says she's having a little trouble hearing you. I can hear you pretty good. Lynn, I would suggest, you know, turning your volume up if not already, and then we'll get Rebecca to sit a little closer. But
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, I'll try to project.
I can hear you fine.
So I started taking this class, and I had a couple lessons under my belt, and this was the first flower that I took to do on my own. It wasn't a lesson. So I found these tulips down near Medlock Park, and they were really beautiful, and I knew that it was kind of a distracting background and all, but that didn't matter because I was going to paint it, and the tulip was really nice. So I took this picture with that in mind, and so this was my first attempt at painting that wasn't following along on a lesson plan. That was my flower and my painting, and of course I put a painted background and painted the flower, the stem. I added a new leaf because that had 2 little leaves, and I wanted one coming up, so I stretched that out. Now, and I'm going to show you a quick demo on how I do this in Photoshop. So I'm not painting with yellow paint or green paint. I'm using the flower itself to paint. I'm just going over it and manipulating it in Photoshop.
So you're not adding colors, you're using
I'm not
existing
adding color.
colors.
I can, and occasionally
Right.
I'll add tiny bits of color, but that's not really, in general, what I'm doing.
Can't wait to see.
This is another, I thought this was a sweet little white flower. We were actually leaving the gardens, and my companion was already headed to the car without me, so I didn't have much time to spend on this flower. I probably would have zoomed in closer. But when I got it back, I cropped in, and I thought, oh, this is the shot. I really love this. I love this texture. Now, this was on, it was a nice day, but it was a little overcast. And I know you photographers know that if you try to shoot like a white bird, an egret, or white flowers, or even somebody in a white shirt, when it's super sunny out, that white gets blown out. But it was an overcast day. So I got all of the nice texture here, and you can see all the petals. And I don't know if through Zoom you can see this, but there's like a little hints of pink here and hints of green.
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah.
So, and then I really liked the melon shape of this. I think this is called the stigma, and that's maybe called the ovary, but we're not going to talk about the sexy parts of flowers here. That's a whole nother show.
Right.
But anyway, I wanted to paint this, and here's my painting of it, and I wanted the strokes to show. So or at least the texture and the lines in the petal. So it's maybe not so much the strokes, but you can see all these little creases in the petal, the little folds, but I wanted this to have a really nice soft feel to it. So I think I achieved that with this. This is
Yeah.
kind of
Can you go
fun.
back again to the original and back and forth a couple times?
Mm-hmm. So here's the original.
Yeah.
And you can see all these little, where the sunlight catches all the little texture in this white.
Yeah.
Is really pretty, which is cool, but didn't work in the painting. And then that's the painting.
Wow. Is there any do you use things like Gaussian blur or the adjustment brush or anything like that when you're doing this?
I might use the adjustment brush in Camera Raw before I start painting it.
Mm.
But I have different paint brushes, some that are going to show a brush stroke, more a rough, drier brush stroke, and some that are really soft. So
Well, you can see your fine arts education here, you know, when you're talking these things, because, you know, painting with oils, it's, you know, the brush stroke is as important as the object that you're painting. I mean, just the way you apply the paint is so important and critical. So
yeah,
you can really see it here.
So my next one was this iris. My neighbor up the street plants these beautiful flowers, and I kept trying to take pictures of these irises, and I'd get home and it's like, it's okay. And I decided what I really needed to do was get in really close. So I used my 100 lens on this, and when I saw this, it's like, oh, I really love the different layers of this. You've got the front, you've got this down below, and all the little ruffles and ridges. So I really wanted to paint this and
that is a breathtaking
capture
image.
all of the sharp edges and the softness and the long strokes of it.
It reminds me of someone's, you know, Spanish garment blowing in the wind, you know, like flamenco type thing. I guess you've heard that.
Oh,
many times,
yeah.
that's a pretty unimaginative comment, I know, but that's just what it reminds me of. This is after you painted it, obviously.
This is after I painted it.
Yeah. Wow.
And then, so sometimes this was a good shot before I painted it. I would have been really happy with it. but I really enjoyed the painting process. So I did want to paint it. Sometimes, so this poppy, I took these a couple years ago. I saw some poppies and I had, this is a throwaway shot. It's not good. I had other shots of the poppy that I did like, but this was the shot I wanted. This is the angle of the poppy I wanted, but I wanted it with a blue sky. I wanted the reds to be darker and the purples to be more vibrant. You can tell this was pretty bright and sunny. It was taken about 6 p.m. In the summer, so it was still a strong sun. And you see these shadows coming through that are unattractive, and so it really would have been a throwaway shot, but for some reason I didn't throw it away. And so I went back to revisit this because I said I wanted to paint a poppy and knew I had some. So I said, well, this is what I want, but it's really a terrible shot because of the conditions and, you know, time of day and all. So here's my finished version of this poppy. So
Amazing.
thank you. I took,
Quite a transition.
it is, this one was a huge, it went from a throwaway shot to what I wanted that photograph to be in the first place. So I tried some just sky backgrounds in the back, but because it's a painting, that just wasn't quite right. So this background was actually a background I had. So I've got a little, I've started a folder called backgrounds. I've started a little folder called flower parts that I might take a picture of a leaf on a flower, specifically just it in case I want to use it later. So I had this in my backgrounds folder. It was really a brushed metal, but I liked the texture and the soft movement in it, and so I just added a blue hue to it, and I thought it worked great. And so
It just brings it alive, you know, really turns it from, you know, a dying plant on a crappy day into a source of inspiration. This reminds me of, you know, we were at the Tower of London a couple years ago and saw these, you know, millions of poppies they have coming out of the Tower of London to commemorate World War I dead.
Oh, nice.
You know, this painting really is awesome, man.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. I don't even know if I'd call it a painting. I would just call it a really creative process and, you know, creation. You know, I don't know what I'd call it. What would you call it, Becky? Painting?
Beautiful.
Hey, there you go.
I really, in this, I really loved the purple going into red. I love those two color combinations together. And I also really love purple and green. And so I really love this, how you can blend them together. And then there's even blue coming down into the stem.
How you can blend them together. I don't know that I can do that.
One of the other things I do is crochet. And so sometimes I get like this really gorgeous yarn that changes from one color to another, and you get that beautiful change when it's changing from like red to purple or purple to green or something. And I get that same thing like when I'm painting. I can blend those colors together and just make them really beautiful. So so I'll show you this lily. This is my neighbor up the street, Diane, plants a beautiful garden. Like any time of the year, there's something beautiful there. So I grab my camera and walk, she's only half a block up the road, and hang out in front of her house. And she had these lilies here. And once again, I love this yellow turning to orange and going into the dark orange and then the red. I mean, it's just like little fiery colors. And I loved this curl on this lily petal. Right. So I took the shot, and I knew, you know, I couldn't get it with a nice background or anything, but that was okay because I knew I wanted to paint it and really bring out these colors. So here is my final image on this one.
That is unbelievable.
And I actually...
that's just absolutely beautiful. Just to tell you, I'm going to interrupt you and tell you how breathtakingly beautiful that is. Isn't that the one I chose to advertise this event on Facebook?
Yes, it is.
I mean, I'm seeing it now on my a big 30-inch monitor, and it just blows you away. I mean, wow. I'm going to mute myself now before I interrupt you again.
So I'm going to, so you can see the yellow going into orange. I think that's just beautiful. So I'm going to switch my screen to Photoshop. Share. And, all right, let me try it again. Oh, so you can see it. Can you see my lily?
I see it.
Oh, no, I think it's the wrong one, though.
Oh.
It doesn't look like my Photoshop screen is sharing.
I'm seeing your Photoshop
okay,
screen.
so it looks like my
20-second delay, remember.
Looks like
it didn't
Photoshop.
have the green line around it, so I didn't think it was sharing it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on my whole screen, I guess.
And I'll be right
Okay.
back.
So to do these, I use a Wacom tablet.
Camera.
Really? I see it.
No, I can still see you in the camera. You have a small shot of your head on the right side of the screen. And
Wait.
But
the,
not on Facebook Live.
that's okay.
Oh, all right.
That's
Any other time it is. Anyway, I use a Wacom tablet. I have a.
Tell Dwayne to keep it down back there.
I know. Jump in with something that's not relevant. And a pen for anybody that can see it, because you're actually doing brush strokes with this. So here's my Photoshop, and I've got all these brushes over here, and you can see I've got a ton of these brushes. So these brushes actually came with the class that I was in, but I've got a whole bunch of different kinds of brushes, soft brushes, blender brushes, and I'll show you a couple of those. So here's my original, and then in my layers, you can see that I've got a whole bunch of layers here. The original flower at the bottom, I don't paint on it. I always paint on new layers. So I always create new layers, and you can see here I created a separate layer to paint the middle part, and then a separate layer to paint the right curl, and then another layer for this little petal on the right. So that helps me in several ways. First of all, if I paint something and I don't like it, I can throw that layer away and start over because my original is still there. So I'm going to grab a brush. I'm grabbing this brush stroke, meaning when I painted this, I'm going to create a new layer for the demo. When I painted this, I wanted some brush strokes to show because I really wanted some of that yellow to red to blend in. So I didn't want something that was going to be too soft. So now I've told you that I don't add any color. So if you can see up at the top of my screen, across the top, this is blank. This would show color if I had any paint in my brush, but I don't have any paint in my brush. So I'm going to come down here, and I added a little bit to my canvas down here because I thought I should have had a little more there. So this is a good place for me to show you that when I brush, I start brushing this yellow, I've got no paint on my brush. I'm pulling the yellow from the flower, and now you can see it start switching to the orange, and it's pulling that color down. So I am painting with the flower, I'm not just using it, I am using it as a background and painting over it, but not just like I'm painting freehand over it. I'm actually using the colors and the textures and everything from the flower. And you can see if I take, and I know there's might be a delay on my cursor, but I can take long sweeping strokes, and it might be a little harder to see on Zoom that I'm doing these strokes through the red, You can probably see it a little bit better when I get into the yellow and pull this up, but I can take long sweeping strokes, and down here where the yellow goes into the orange, you can see with this brush I've chosen, you get brush strokes. So now the yellow's coming into the red. If I want, I can come back the other way and bring some of the red into the yellow. Hopefully there's not too much of a delay with my cursor. You can see that. So
No, it
that's
looks
giving
perfect.
me some brush strokes. Now, if I had wanted this to be a little softer, I've got a soft blender brush, medium, and you can, this is also very beautiful, blending this yellow to orange together, but you can see it's really, really soft. And there's all different brushes. There's like a water blender brush, and it's, as you might imagine from the name, really super nice and soft, and just blends these together. So this is, so that's how I do it. This is what it looked like when I finished that layer. And then I did the right petal, and you can see this right petal go straight across, but I pulled my brush strokes up and curved them up a little. And then I did the right curl, and you can see along here I did long sweeping strokes and then shorter little strokes, bringing the edges so that you can see the little kind of ruffles in the edges. So I could have been done with this painting at this point, except for the background, but I decided to do one more brush stroke on it and make it a little softer. Down here. So one of the other brushes I have is the rough round blender, and I kind of went over it and just softened those up a little bit. So I ended up using this brush, and you can barely see it, but it softened it up a little. I wanted those edges just a tiny bit softer. And like I said, I could have been finished with it as is, but this is what it looked like when I added the blender. So I went from here to here. So you're still seeing the strokes, the brush strokes, but it softened it a little. And there's my blender here.
What is the outline on the curl layer?
So the outline on the curl, I'm going to zoom in here. Let me make another layer. So the outline on the curl, that curl really needs a little outline to make it pop. So there's my little outline. So to do that, I have some really nice small brushes. And in this is a case where I'm actually going to add some color. So I have loaded, and I've got a thin liner with no color, but I'm going to add a little color, and I've got a very soft pink, almost white, loaded in my brush. So then I came along, so this is a really small brush, totally different than the other brushes I used, and just lightly came along here, this edge.
Right.
And because it's a pressure sensitive pen, if I do a real light pressure, it puts a little bit of ink down, but if I do a hard pressure or go over it a couple of times,
Right.
It puts more ink down. And a lot of times I'll do a selection so I don't go over the edges. And you can see, like, I went a little bit over here, so I can erase it. I'll just I can come erase little edges that I don't like. So I'll turn off my one I just did, and then that's it with it, and then with my background. So
yeah, I don't think I would have ever thought about having that color as the background, but it really changes the photo completely.
You know, I was trying greens. I'm not really, I don't think I'm really good at figuring out backgrounds.
It looks like you are to me.
I was trying different greens for a contrasting color, and I just picked these colors, the orange and kind of dark orange red, and did a gradient. And I was like, oh, I like that. I like the whole monochromatic with it, and added some texture with my brushes over top of it.
Right.
So, and like I said, I took this class from Rosie Lalonde, and she's on Facebook, and
How do you spell that last name?
Lalonde.
Okay.
And she, I'm sure, spent months or a year coming up with this process. And I started this class last July and just finished it because she'd spaced the lessons out. If you started it now, you could probably do it quicker, but it comes with all the brushes and a Facebook page where you post your photos and get feedback and support and see what other people post. So just like when I see pictures on Sunlit Earth and get inspiration from what people are doing,
Right.
it's nice to see what other people do. And
Hey, Rebecca, have you heard of the Facebook group? It's called Florography.
no,
You should try that group out. It's Florography. It's artistic floral photography. It's got some wonderful things there, and yours would definitely belong in there.
oh, awesome. I'm going to check that out.
I'm looking at that now. Yeah.
Offline
Florography.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now if you are going to, so I love Photoshop. I've been using Photoshop since like the first version. And I probably had several years where I didn't do much when my job at work changed from creative to technical, and I was in a funk, but got back into my photography and Photoshop stuff 3 years ago. Now, like Dwayne, he loves to go out taking pictures and come back and review them, and he's done. So he doesn't really enjoy the editing process, but I really do. And so you really have to enjoy, I don't know that you have to enjoy Photoshop, but if you were going to sit down and paint a photograph with oils or watercolor, you're taking the time. It might spend a whole morning or afternoon. I mean, some of these take me hours. And that's fine by me because it's very meditative. It's a really nice process and I really enjoy it. So
Yeah.
it's
This reminds me a lot of
filter over it.
of artists throughout the history since the Renaissance. You know, whatever available tools were around, they were able to translate something in their mind into the object. Like they would say, the sculpture existed inside the rock already, and I'm just clearing away the debris. And to me, you know, the fact that you're using Photoshop, or whether this is 1540 and you're using some camel hair brushes and stuff, you know, pigment you squashed out of flowers in the garden, to me is irrelevant. It's the same thing. It's just the available tools. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it really is an awesome procedure. So this is brushes mostly. And you know, a lot of these brushes or similar brushes do exist in Photoshop, but these are really specially designed just for this use. And so it sounds like it's a great program to get involved with. And that's
they really are. I think a couple years ago, Photoshop added the wet media brushes that they had not had before. Right. And that really opened up the process to make brushes like this.
And just to take all the wonder out of it, I will tell you that Photoshop is nothing but an array of numbers in the background. The programming of it is just a giant spreadsheet of numbers, and it's color magnitude values for every pixel in your image. And the reason I brought this up is because all these brushes, the adjustment brush, all of the in anything you can possibly do in Photoshop is somebody who took some time and developed an algorithm to change numbers in relation to each other in this spreadsheet. So if you really hate being at work and having to do a 50,000 cell spreadsheet for something that's totally irrelevant anyway, they're doing it for you in the background on Adobe Photoshop. So to me, the translation from math, interrelational math between numbers, to this much of a beautiful, inspiring image is something else that's always amazed me, you know, with calculus. And because, you know, Isaac Newton says calculus is the language of nature. Math is the language of nature, and it's really true. But, you know, I don't want to take all the wonder out of it and buzzkill it totally with talking about numbers. But this is just math taken to the highest level of artisanship that you can do. And that's awesome. Can you make me look like Johnny Depp with these brushes? Is that possible?
Oh, well.
Is there a fat brush by any chance? Is there a blubber brush?
There are some remarkable photo touching tools. Reminds me, I need to have pre-approval of any photos you post of me from now on, because that picture of you and me together, you will find that I look terrible.
Everyone says that, you know, and all of you, and this is not even a sexist comment, but all of you, my friends, are so beautiful. And I see, you know, now that I'm old and I just see things differently, you know, I just see so many cool things in all of your faces. And you have a very remarkable look. And even Dwayne is you know, and Becky. And it's just the stories that are written on your face. I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but the stories in everyone's faces are what interests me now. And my friend Betsy down in Savannah, who every time I've ever taken a photo of her and put it on Facebook, she always tells me she looks horrible. She hates her photo, whatever. But her face has got stories of years and years and years of just awesome things. And so does yours. And I just love that. So I know I'm going on a tangent. I'm interrupting your presentation. But I was just curious if there was a slendering brush that could be used in Photoshop. But I'm guessing there's not, because I'm pretty familiar with Photoshop myself.
Well, it's maybe not a brush, but there are slendering things.
Yes, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
And you know, I mean, you really don't want to touch up this face. I mean, you know.
I don't know why you would.
And you don't want to take it all the way to the drug abusing Johnny Depp. You know,
Yes, perhaps you're right.
You got to get the young Johnny Depp.
Perhaps you're right. You know, I've always felt like I was more of a Dom DeLuise character from Cannonball Run. But anyway, go ahead. Or John Candy, perhaps. You know, I could do that too.
All right. Well, that's pretty much my presentation.
Awesome. So let's talk about the ending of the show and what we're going to do this week. I'm going to go ahead and share one more screen. And I don't know why. I just thought it was a cool screen to share. And the two of you are in it, by the way. So let me see if I can figure out how to do that. Okay, where's my Zoom window? I'm trying. Can you stop sharing?
Maybe.
Where's
Here we go.
there we are. Okay. So yeah. All right. Let me share this. And Becky and Rebecca and Dwayne have all been on these Sunlit Earth hikes with us. I tried to get Becky to leave one, but she chickened out. And we're gonna start these up again. And Becky, you need to come lead a hike because you're an awesome person.
Hey, I showed up, remember?
You did show up.
I showed up and
it
it was cold and it was just like three of us.
Yeah, but we still had fun. You know, this camaraderie is great. And you know, birders, if you put 30 birders in a room, they're all miserable because they would rather be by themselves in the woods. But you know, you get a little bit out of being friends and sharing, you know, your passion for things. I've always found that to be a lot of fun. But you know, I like to talk. So this is the flood 2 years ago, I believe it was, at Clyde Shepherd. Maybe it was last year. But there's Dwayne and Rebecca over here standing next to my camera. So next week, I'm not exactly sure who the guest is going to be, but I'm pretty sure it'll be somebody awesome because all my friends in this are pretty awesome. But I do want to say thanks for tuning in. Does anyone else have any comments or questions in the Zoom meeting that they would like to ask Rebecca or me or Becky or Alexandra Hart? Alexandra Hart is my UK contact. She's awesome. She was a big part of last week's show, and I'm glad to have her on here. So I'm looking at the chat room. Okay, well, good. Rebecca, Dwayne, Sealand, thank you for taking time out of your Friday to be with us. Becky, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it very much. And to the rest of you on the Zoom meeting, thank you. And we're going to do the same thing again next week, Friday, probably at 10 a.m. And then the week after that, I'm going to do a live broadcast from some remote location. The remote location that we had planned to be was the exact point where Hurricane Sally came ashore in Gulf Shores, Alabama. So we're not going to be going there again, but we will have a remote location broadcast in 2 weeks. So thanks again for tuning in. And this has been This Week in Sunlit Earth. Please go join the Sunlit Earth Facebook page and enjoy us. And that was Steve Rushing.
That's it.
Hey, Steve Rushing.
Oh, hey, Steve.
one of my favorite birders. And by the way, you're the one I'm going to ask to be on the show, just to let you know. So anyway, signing off from Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you for tuning in, everybody.
Bye.
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 Bye.